Welcome to Gold Mining with Reed Lukens and Jim Morrison. This is Hydraulic Mining Part 2 of the Gold Mining series. I had enough questions asked about the blue clay that I just thought I'd put up here at the very front of this video because this is hydraulic mining. And this picture right here is taken right out of the sluice box. And you can easily see the blue clay now it's broken down from its original midnight blue state to where as it gets washed down, with water and mixed, and it starts breaking all the actual clays down, the colors separate, and this is what you get, and this is the blue clay.
Well, today we're sitting here in this old 1800s sluice box from the hydraulic era. This is the head of the box we were at in 2004. And so here it is for the first time. You got your support beams on the sides. Your walls are still here and intact on both sides. What we're going to do today is dig down here and see if we have riffles in the bottom and see if there's any gold. Now the gold was emptied out back before this was covered with hydraulic tailings back in the late 1800s. And here's another angle of it, showing straight up the box, and it goes right up the canyon. Just so you can get an idea of what was going on in the hydraulic era and how much damage they actually did. I mean, did they get the gold out? Yeah, they did, but at what cost? They cost the farmers their entire properties down in Marysville. I mean, it wasn't a good thing mining back in those days, and it gave miners these days a bad name, which is one of the reasons we have so much problem getting anything done these days.
One thing I want to hit on, a lot of people, they don't ever hear it hit on, you don't ever hear it said. Used to be people talked about mercury in the rivers and using mercury to recover gold. Personally, I don't need to use the mercury because what I'm doing, the way I have my box set up with this over-under and slower current going through my box, is I'm recovering the mercury that the miners from the 1800s used, and I'm classifying it back, and I'll go ahead and clean the mercury and sell it back to a chemical company who can resell it to somebody who's going to use it. In the old hydraulic era, they used a lot of mercury in their sluice boxes. Is they would find a place for a sluice box. Their sluice ought to be a quarter of a mile long sometimes, 500 feet. 800-foot sluice boxes were not uncommon. They figured the longer their sluice box, the more gold they were going to catch. Well, that's good, but these days we want a short sluice box that'll catch it all right there. We don't have the place for an 800-foot sluice box, or the, liability for one either. But this mercury, they would put it in, I can't remember exactly, a couple hundred pounds of mercury, 700 pounds of mercury, into these boxes because the mercury would naturally collect the gold.
So how does the mercury get into the salmon on the salmon runs? Do you think the mercury gets into the salmon when they come back upstream? There's toxic amounts of mercury in the ocean. Okay, and this is a major part, just another one of those things you don't usually hear. I'm bringing it out, letting you know there's toxic amounts of mercury in the ocean. So the salmon, they digest the mercury, it gets into their system, okay? Then they swim up the Sacramento River, or whatever river it is, up to their spawning grounds and die. When their body decays, once again, the mercury is released back into the rivers, and it starts this process all over again. This is a never-ending process with the mercury. It's not just that, it was done in the 1800s. Yes, that was bad, but the fish aren't just coming upriver and, getting the mercury off the bottom and having it stirred up in the rivers like, people are being told. They're actually getting it out of the ocean in toxic doses and bringing it back up the rivers to their spawning grounds and dying, and when they decay, the mercury goes right back into the river again, right where it started. So I wanted to let you know about this because it's a very important topic that it's just not touched. There's mercury all over the place. There's actually a place called Mercury City here in California, where years ago, I don't know if you still can, you can walk up to the side of the hill where they had taken a pipe and pounded it into the hillside, and you could turn on that faucet and mercury would pour out. If you ever wanted mercury, you went there with your bucket, you opened the spout, and you got as much mercury as you wanted. You know, mercury is readily available at any chemical company. Some mining shops carry it, you know, but because of the toxicity of it nowadays and the widespread, you know, topic of how it's going to kill you, you know, which really isn't true. I mean, I've played with mercury all my life, you know, and I might be a little touched, but it's not from the mercury. You know, I mean, you know, we all play with thermometers as kids, you know, and the way I work, where I work at, you know, we used to use mercury there in all of our, you know, mercury switches that we had, and then mercury switches work for blowing things up like you see in movies like Lethal Weapon and all that stuff. The mercury switches were designed to control high-tech equipment running off of steam, running off of pneumatic air power, you know, running off of hydraulics. Use the mercury switches to change the gates to put, you know, steam or oil or air into a different area when you need it at that time. Very, very widely used chemical. Okay, I mean, now it's like people are trying to outlaw and they're saying it's this terrible thing. Well, you know what? If you're going to eat it, you know, yeah, it's a terrible thing. You don't want to eat it. If you get it on your hands, a little bit will absorb into your hands, you know. If you're not playing with it every single day, you're going to be okay. Now there's people that have had actual Cinnabar Mines or mercury mines that have been in it all their lives. And what happens to them is it actually absorbs through their skin. There's so much that they've been absorbing with that it'll start eating the bones, their bones become brittle. You know, that's a terrible thing, but these people are in it every day. How many times in your life have you been around mercury or played with it? Somewhere in the 1880s, 1890s, you know, right there at the end of the hydraulic, within the last couple of years, there was a huge flood here in California. And, you know, you never hear this talked about at any other gold shows. This is why I'm doing this one here. It's not really a gold show. You're not paying for it. You know, it's just right here. And what happened was there was a huge flood that came down and washed the riffles out of the sluice boxes. It took the mercury, it took the riffles, and in a lot of places it took the entire box, wood and all, and washed it downstream, along with the gold that they had caught for the entire summer because they did a cleanup once a year. Now a lot of times they would run these sluice boxes through a tunnel that they would blast through the mountain. And I'll get you a picture of one or two of those. I mean, there's tunnels, hydraulic mine tunnels, all over the place. Most of them had the riffles taken out. Just like this one here. I didn't expect to find the riffles, but I knew it had been buried. Okay, and what happened was, so after that year, the flood came through and washed everything out and went downstream. The miners came through and went down and scavenged and got whatever they could. And then they continued mining up until the Great Depression, with people just not knowing. They would come in and mine during the winter. You know, and this really, what can you say? You know, the miners of the 1800s, man, they didn't really have a clue what we have today. With my gold dredge, I can pull out pounds of mercury and have it stay in the dredge. And that's just so important. You know, I mean, I've seen pounds of mercury in different hillsides. I mean, I've seen up to like 4 to 5 pounds of mercury just pour out of the side of a wall above a hydraulic mine. You know, I'm saying this on video. I'm not going to say where it's at. They went through there. The government came in and cleaned that up because I wasn't the only one that saw that mercury coming flowing downstream. And they went in there with a hazmat crew and cleaned up the entire area. And we're basically just right below that pit. And, you know, if you're a miner, you know which pit I'm in, you know. And so anyway, here we're sitting. I got tons of these riffles. So what's going to happen when I take one of these home and burn it? Well, this is going to be just totally encased, more than likely, not only with gold, but with the amalgam. The silver gold, the gold that's covered with mercury. And what are you going to do? I mean, if you burn this, all you're going to do is put that mercury into the atmosphere. I mean, do we want to do that? Is that my plan? To take all these riffles out and do that? No, it's not my plan. What I'll do is I'll take a few of these home and I'll chop them up and I'll grind them. I'll actually grind them with a shovel. I'll grind them with I have a little jaw crusher. Now I'll put them through the jaw crushers and just grind everything up, and then I'll pan it out and see how much gold I'm getting, see if it's going to be worth coming down here and getting these other riffles. Because we're probably 900 to 1,000 feet down from the original head of the box. So I'm way down. Like I said, this is like a 1,400 foot box. So I'm already 1,000 feet downstream from the top. And here's the riffles right here exposed. Right there. There you go. Is that getting a good view?
Yeah.
So there you see what we got going on. Let's go ahead and take it as far down as you can see the riffles. What we have here is that, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, after this mine was totally covered, okay, what you're seeing here is a mountain that was laid on top of this sluice box, and it's finally being exposed for the first time since the 1900s. I can't tell you the approximate date. I'm not quite that old. So this is what you're seeing in the hydraulic mines, is you're seeing millions and millions of cubic yards of devastation. Okay, they washed millions of yards downstream. And this is what happened and why they wrote the hydraulic mining law of 1872, where they outlawed hydraulic mining, because all these tailings.
It was the 1884 Sawyer decision.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah.
I got Jimmy, he's my scientist. He tells me it's the 1884 Sawyer decision. You heard it from him.
I just to look it up.
And we know he's right. He knows his stuff. Okay? So the 1884 Sawyer decision, right? Correct?
Yeah, we'll have to look it up. We'll have to edit.
Okay, that's fine. But so the 1884 Sawyer decision is what shut down hydraulic mining. And this is why, because they washed everything you see here. All these gravels, this entire bank that you see above me, behind me, this is all tailings out of the hydraulic mines up in the hills. And it washed right down into Marysville and covered Marysville and destroyed the farmlands. I mean, man, the miners of the 1800s, they did so much damage that they actually had to sue them to make them stop destroying the rest of the country. I'm an advocate for mining. Yes, I am. Am I an advocate for the miners of 200 years ago and the damage they did with these hydraulic mines and all the mercury that they got put in the rivers? No, I'm not. And this is why I clean the rivers. Just downstream from here, there's a hole where I was asked to go down and clean the public swimming hole out with my dredge. When I got down to the bottom there, I got around 200 pounds of lead sinkers and old shot and fishing weights and car parts out of the bottom of that. I mean, I literally sank my dredge. It was sitting there, and I looked back at my dredge, and it was, I had it floating at the time, and the whole back end was sitting down in the water, and the back pontoons were underwater, and it's sitting like this. So we stopped dredging real quick. We are on a 50-foot hose way down the bottom of this hole. We were about 30 feet down, as deep as you can go, with the hookah air system that we had, which was the gas compressor. Still, you don't want to go below 32 feet. I had 50 feet of hose, but we measured it from the top, so we were safe. We didn't go below the 30 feet, and it was about 28 feet, 29 feet right at the bedrock where we stopped, and we were actually standing there putting the hose down to get more out of this swimming hole. So anyway, we had to stop and went back up there, and it took everything the two of us had, that was Tom Akins and I, to get that dredge back up out of the water, and take a look at it. And when we got it back out of the water, we were so amazed. It was full of fishing weights. It had 3 inches of fishing weights. The entire box was filled to the top to where fishing weights were going to start going off the back end and over the sides. It was that full. There was over 150 pounds of fishing weights that we hauled out of this one place alone. This is the benefits of dredging. Okay? We clean the rivers of all that crap. I've got car parts. I found half a car. I've got tons of shovels and picks and gold pans, from even old steel ones from back in the 1800s. I can't tell you how many horseshoe nails I've got and how many square nails. By the thousands. Literally the thousands in the over 20 years of dredging I've been doing. I mean, just tons and tons of pounds. And what do we do with it? Well, we take the square nails home, and I use them in my house, because I got an old log house, and they look really good on the walls, and I got a big old, drum full of them at the house, a 5-gallon bucket. And then, all the car parts and everything else we take down and we scrap it. You know, we take it to the dump where it belongs. It doesn't belong in our rivers. This is a natural riverbed. At one time, this was a beautiful little creek, and now what do you see? It's just a dried up wash full of old hydraulic tailings from the 1800s. You know, once again, you know, this is Reed Lukens, this is hydraulic mining, and this is the devastation that it caused, but it's also why we're here cleaning up, you know, the planet today. You know, am I here just to clean this up and make it look good and sound real good? I'm here to get the gold too, and I'm going to be doing just fine. I guarantee you, we'll get gold. We're going to get whole gold here this afternoon, and we'll show it to you in the sluice box. And I'm going to catch that mercury. I'm not going to let it go back into the stream, you know. So I'm doing my part to help clean up after what the miners did back in the 1800s. And this is 2008 right now, and we're still seeing the effects today of what mercury is doing to the fish, what mercury is doing to the habitat. I mean, yeah, maybe we're not the Exxon Valdez, but, you know, if people knew the truth about what the miners did with the mercury back 200 years ago, they'd understand that it was at least just as bad. You know, it may not have been miles and miles of ocean, but it was miles and miles of river that was affected. You know, and you can't blame all the mercury in the rivers on the miner, though, because there are Cinnabar mines upstream. There's a Cinnabar mine just downstream of the Empire mine that actually, you know, was found by people mining in the river. You know, they found the Cinnabar ore, they found the mercury. I mean, so mercury is naturally occurring all over the place, all over the world. But a lot of the refined mercury, all the refined mercury you're finding in the rivers, you know, a lot of that mercury is from the miners of the 1800s, from the hydraulic era. And if you're in a place where you're mining downstream of a hydraulic pit, you know, you want to have a box that's going to collect the mercury, just so you know you're doing good, you're doing the right thing. People would just drive cars that were worthless out and off a cliff and down into the creeks, down into the rivers. They would go. Well, so you got car parts, you got motor oil, you got everything down these rivers for years and years, but you don't hear that talked about on TV, you know. We all fish. Everybody's been fishing. Everybody loses a fishing line or has a line break. You know, and I've seen it. I've pulled, when I was in Alaska years ago, there was one little log snag out there that everybody would get their lure caught on. So I put my wetsuit on and I went out there when we were fishing one day. I just took it with me, and I had fishermen casting right at me and stuff and tell me to get out of the water. They didn't understand what I was doing, you know. I was out there trying to see what it was where all these lures were being caught. I didn't want to leave them in the river. And I went out there and I found a log that was attached to the bottom. It was about this big, and it was nothing but a solid mass of lures. I brought back out of the water, what I did was we ended up taking we took a rope out there and tied it around this log and tied it to the back of the truck and hauled it up and got it up on shore. And there was just this solid mass of lures. They weren't rusty, but they've been gathering there for 40, 50 years, you know. And so it took handfuls of lures. You know, these other fishermen were out there, come on, you're ruining our day, you're out there, you know, we're trying to fish here, just, you know, go somewhere else. And I'm like, you don't understand. So I come out with this giant log, just flat out, you know, full of lures, and they're just like, oh wow, you know. All of a sudden things changed. And of course I started giving lures away by the handfuls to all these guys that were out there fishing. A couple of them wouldn't take the lures, so they were just mad that I was there. You know, some people have bad attitudes, but most of us don't. Most of us have a purpose in life. You know, my purpose is to clean up after the people that were here before me. I mean, right here on this mining claim, every year we probably take out 20 to 30 bags of garbage that other people have left on the stream. I hate to say it, but you know, there's always somebody out there throwing their beer bottles in the water. Or there's always somebody else coming out there behind them and picking them up. You know, a lot of these kids don't realize. I call them kids. They could be my age or older than me.
But they're out there, and when they get done with their beer, they put a little bit of water in it, and they try floating it down the river. Well, somebody down the river is going to grab that bottle and pick it up and throw it in the garbage where it belongs, just like I do.
Well, there's Jim. We've been digging down, and we got down to the bottom. There is no riffles in here, well, unfortunately, but there is gold. We're getting gold and just shoveling into the sluice box directly. We were shoveling, now we're using a trowel to get the very bottom stuff, the stuff out of the corners. And it's a real rusty looking, nice looking stuff. We've seen gold in the box, we've seen one nugget in there. So we're doing okay just for out here having fun and...
I'd say it's a flake.
Yeah, doing a little cannon and a little sluice boxing. That's a Gold Blitz sluice box from Germany. I bought here a number of years ago from the guys there. They hand make them, and it's not your standard American sluice box. It's designed for fine gold. There's no ripples in it, which is what we're getting down here, is more fine gold than anything else. So just putting a shot in for them. It's, you know, you can go to the 49er Mike website, 49ermike.com, and look up the Gold Blitz sluice box. And you'll find everything you need to know about that. It was expensive, but you know what? It's perfect for this area. And because we're sitting down here trying it out and getting gold, that's what we're here for. And you can see we got gold in here. Right here, all these little specks are the gold. And there's quite a few. The nugget has gone down underneath into one of the traps, but just to give you a view of what's going on here. So we got what we came for. We want to come down here and see if there's any gold left in the sluice box. And even though it's running in, it's still here. You can see that nice little piece right here. You know, and there's a whole bunch of nice little pieces in there. And a lot more down this carpet. We've been shoveling for, oh, I don't know, an hour or two. And this is just what's sitting up here at the very head of the box. Quite a bit, not a bad day. And we're happy. Like I said, we're getting gold. So the nuggets come down here and they run underneath this little silver, this metal lip goes underneath there. There's a lip there to catch the nuggets. Then right there beyond that, that little trap is there also. Then it goes on down into the expanded metal. And this is where you're going to catch all your fines, right into here. And then out the back end. There was a big nugget trap that came with it for the back end, but we're not in an area where we got to worry about big nuggets, and we're just shoveling. If we're going to see nuggets with the amount of water we got going through here, they're going to stay right in the top. We're going to pick them out by hand. So yeah, this is the Gold Blitz sluice box, and it's one of the best sluice boxes I ever bought. And I've got all kinds of sluice boxes, but this one here is my favorite because it comes apart, breaks down, goes in my backpack, breaks down into the back of the truck. It's got these clips on it right here on the ends, so it just, it breaks in half. It's real nice. Everything comes out and it's nice and tight. But that pyramid is actually a corner marker for the hydraulic mines. You had the one on the left, of course, was the Polar Star. The one on the right was the Dutch Flat. And something about the Polar Star is the largest nugget that ever came out of the ground in a hydraulic mine was found right there at the Polar Star, just right outside of Dutch Flat. And the town of Dutch Flat's right over there too. But this is really important. This is a really good shot. This is one of the few good spires that you have left. There's plenty of them out there, but most of them have trees on them and they're almost totally invisible. But this one here is completely and totally obvious. And I mean, that sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, even today, you know, this is 2009, and you're looking back into the 1870s right there when that was actually made. You can do the math. Even still today, you can see the marks of the hydraulic mining. But for the most part nowadays, you have to know exactly what it is you're looking at. All right, here's a close-up of the riffles inside the box. And of course, this north side of the box is gone. There's Jimmy sitting there on that same riffle that I was showing you. And go ahead and point the riffles out to them just so they know for sure. Now that whole line is a layer of the 18-inch blocks, then 2x2, block, 2x2, block, 2x2, all the way down, okay? Now we can't see the rest. It's still buried underneath the hillside. But just to give you an idea how tall this hillside is, and just how much tailings was on top of this, there's Jimmy. Go ahead and stand up, brother. Okay, so I'm going to pan down this hillside. It's probably 50 feet down to where Jimmy is standing. He wants me to call him Jim. So look how much is on top of there as far as the tailings goes. I mean, we're talking a mountain of tailings on top of this old sluice box that hadn't seen daylight in probably 100 years or thereabouts. Okay, what we got going is, here is the beginning of the box that wasn't destroyed. The riffles are all washed out, they're laying everywhere. But what we got going is, where I'm standing, is a different section of box. And what they did here, they didn't use regular riffles, they used these boulders that you see in here for the riffles. And the boulders did not come out of there when everything got covered up. We have board right here. Is this more riffles down below? No, this is the bottom of the sluice box. Because the riffles are boulders, they didn't take them out. And they're really heavy. So Jimmy and I, Jim, we're down here digging these boulders out. And we're doing real good. We found the hot spot in the hydraulic tailings pit. So we are in the old sluice box, pulling these old boulders out of here. And then I'm just scraping the gold right off the bottom, putting it into a bucket. Of course, this has got dirt with it. Then we're running it through our sluice box. And every shovel that we put in a sluice box, we see plenty of gold. So, was this cleaned before they put the boulders back in here? Because it was so far down, we're still talking, oh, probably 1,000 feet down the box, 800 feet down from the head of the box, where we were at in the other part of the video. We are probably, about a football field, maybe a little bit more. So there's a chance that they didn't do this because the gold was paying up top. They probably came part way down and got to the point where they weren't getting enough gold out of there, the bottom. They left these boulders in there, put them back in here in place to hold the box in place. You know, maybe they thought they'd be able to come back and get it. Maybe they didn't realize they're going to have 80 feet of tailings over the top of it buried. And that, you know, Reed Lukens and Jim Morrison were going to be the first people down here to dig it out 130 years later when it finally came to the surface.
Well, once again, I'm out of time, and I'm trying to keep my movies down to 30 minutes, and once again, I didn't quite make it on this one. This is my first one that they have allowed me to make as long as I want, but 30 minutes is still going to be my max, just so I don't bore you guys to tears. Take a look at the picture, and look up on the very right-hand side where you can see the top of the mountain that wasn't washed away and where they did the washing to it. Then look over to the left just a little bit, and you can see the boundary marker, or the spire, and it's still got bushes on top of it. And what I want you to do is imagine and just fill in the blanks. Okay, there's a huge blank in this picture. Okay, that mountain on the far right continued all the way across the picture and went uphill. just right about the same angle as the one behind it. So just imagine it come over to that spire, then taking a dip up the hill, and realize just how much they took. And they did this all over Northern California. I mean, there was millions and millions of cubic yards of material were washed into our rivers. And that's why when you're walking down the rivers, like at the American or the Feather or the Bear, or especially like the South Yuba out of Malakoff Diggins, where you cross the bridge before you get to the turnoff to go in there, you're taking a look and you're seeing this little tiny creek about 3 feet wide, and it's surrounded on both sides by 300 feet of just gravel. That gravel is not natural. That gravel is the tailings from Malakoff Diggins, and it used to be 300 feet deeper at one time. That was a huge cavern, but the gravels, the tailings out of the mine, filled that entire canyon up. And that is something that you really need to grasp. And so then we had Marysville. It's down there in Flatland City. Where was it going to go? It just went over the top of the buildings and everything. It covered everything in Marysville, and that's why the farmers had to sue. There was nothing left. Their crops were ruined. They were buried under 10 feet of muck, under tailings, and it was just massive devastation and the destruction of their lands. And they had every right to sue, and they did the right thing. So yeah, just imagine, just by looking at this picture, just exactly what's going on, and understand how much was actually moved. This is an old picture of Dutch Flat back in the hydraulic mining days, before a lot of the devastation that took place. You look in the center, you can see the Dutch Flat Hotel. That's not the same hotel or in the same location as the one that's there today. But take a look up there beyond that and up the picture, and you can see the mountain going up, and it's got the cattle ranch there, and you can just see a little bit of hydraulic, and I think up there in the very top, but I'm not sure. But there's actually a hill there, and this is something I really want to look at, just kind of get a good overall view of the picture of what's up and beyond that Dutch Flat Hotel in the center, because I'm going to show you another picture here in a second. It's going to just floor you. Obviously, what I circled is that Dutch Flat Hotel again. And look at everything else above it and beyond it. And you need to realize that though you can still see a little bit of the pasture in this picture, just look at how much they washed and understand that they had to get rid of the city to wash the rest of the mountain down over way beyond that little tiny black mountain up there you see up on the left-hand corner. Okay, they put it down into the Bear River, and this just totally plugged the Bear River also. But they got good gold out of here, but look at the cost. And you need to understand, everywhere that you see where they washed that hillside, they continued washing that hillside for another half a mile until it was as level as the town. They washed that whole area down to where it's flat, and there is no mountain there today. It goes straight over, then drops straight down into the river. They followed the bedrock all the way across. They made huge amounts of money, but they just clogged the rivers, and that's why we have on that river, on the Bear River, we have Rawlins Lake Reservoir, and that's a debris dam that was designed to hold the gravels from getting carried farther on down and clogging up Sacramento and everything else on its way. And these debris dams are everywhere. I mean, they're in all the rivers. Clementine is another debris dam. At least that's what it was designed for originally. And here's another picture. It's like, how close can you wash up to the city limits without taking the city away? And you can see the boundary marker there. It's just amazing that they just took entire cities for the gold. I mean, once again, you can see the hotel. This is basically the same picture as the last one, but it shows it in the forefront where they've already washed everything on that mountain all the way up to that part of the city. Now here's a picture of a couple of the monitors, or giants, that they used in Dutch Flat. And yeah, these are the hydraulic monitors, man, and this is what did the washing and put everything into those sluice boxes that you see. It's just one of the pictures that I have in my archives. I have tons of family pictures, and we got tons of family from Dutch Flat and everything else. And coming up next, I'm going to show you a little section of what we got coming up. And we're going to go and do a little high banking, and we're inside the sluice box popping riffles. And that's what's coming up in the next edition of Gold Mining with Reed Lukens. And then, of course, we got Tom Akins in there, and we got Keith Chilson in there, and we've got Jim Morrison in there, and I don't see Julie Thompson, but she's off on the right there, probably kicking back or getting something for one of us. She took care of us the whole time we were down there cleaning out that sluice box. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too long and boring for you. You have a good one. Here's another picture of Dutch Flat. This is another monitor, another giant down there. And that's one of my favorite pictures of Dutch Flat. You know, look up there on the hillside and just imagine that that entire hillside that you see in there now is no longer there.